My mom called me crying. Grandpa was badly injured. Stay home. He needs you, she said. I canceled my trip, only to see their vacation photos online. But that wasn't the worst part. They stole my $3 million and cut me out of everything. When I uncovered the truth, I destroyed them. I never thought my own family would betray me like this. Looking back, the signs were always there, but I ignored them, convincing myself that I was just imagining things. I worked hard, kept my head down, and did everything I could to prove my worth. But in the end, it didn't matter. They had made their decision long before I ever realized it. My name is Sophia Carter, and I was raised in San Diego, California, in a wealthy but deeply divided family. My father, Mark Carter, built a successful hotel business from the ground up. He always prided himself on being a self-made man, but that was a lie. The real foundation of our family's success came from my grandfather, Walter Carter. He was the true mastermind, the one who invested wisely and made sure our family had financial security. He left behind a trust fund worth millions, meant to be split between me and my younger brother, Ethan. But somewhere along the way, my parents decided that only one of us deserved it. Ethan was always the golden child. He got everything handed to him: private school, expensive cars, elite connections, while I had to work for everything. Even as a child, I could see the difference in how we were treated. If Ethan wanted something, my parents made it happen. If I needed help, they told me to figure it out. I always thought that if I worked hard enough, they would finally see my value. I graduated with honors, became a financial analyst, and saved every penny I could. But I was wrong. No matter what I did, it was never enough. A few months ago, our family planned a vacation to Hawaii. It was supposed to be a time to relax, enjoy the sun, and finally reconnect. I was excited, more than I had been in years. I worked extra hours to save for the trip, bought new clothes, and even took time off work. It was going to be a fresh start, or so I thought. Then, just a day before we were supposed to leave, my mother, Linda, called me, her voice trembling. "Sophia, honey, there's been an accident," she said, barely holding back sobs. "Your grandpa slipped and got hurt badly. We need you here." My stomach dropped. Grandpa was everything to me. He was the only one who had ever been fair, the only one who treated me with love and respect. Without thinking twice, I canceled my flight, packed my bags, and rushed to his house, worried sick. But the moment I stepped inside, my entire world shattered. There was Grandpa sitting in his chair, perfectly fine, reading a book. He looked up at me, surprised. "Sophia? What are you doing here?" Confusion swirled inside me. "Mom called me. She said you had a bad fall and needed help." Grandpa's expression darkened. He set his book down and sighed, rubbing his temples. "She told you that?" My heart started pounding. Something wasn't right. "Grandpa, what's going on?" I asked, my voice shaking. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then he looked me in the eyes, his face filled with something I had never seen before. Anger. "She wanted me to lie," he said, his voice sharp. "She called me days ago, asking me to play along if you came here. Said it was for family harmony. But I told her I wouldn't do it." My breath caught in my throat. Lie about what? Grandpa exhaled slowly and reached for my hand. "That trip, Sophia. They never wanted you to come." I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. No, that couldn't be true. My mind raced, searching for another explanation. Maybe there was a misunderstanding. Maybe. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. Absent-mindedly, I pulled it out and looked at the screen. A notification from Instagram. I opened the app, and my entire world collapsed. Right there, staring back at me, was a photo of my family at the beach resort in Hawaii. My parents, Ethan, aunts, uncles, cousins, all of them, smiling, laughing, cocktails in hand, enjoying the vacation I was supposed to be on. And then I saw the caption, written by Ethan himself. "Family vacations are the best. So grateful for this beautiful trip." My hands trembled as I stared at the screen. My mind couldn't process what I was seeing. They had lied. They had manipulated me. They had never wanted me there. Tears burned in my eyes, but I refused to cry. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. My mother had looked me in the eye and lied to my face. My father, the man who always told me to work hard and earn my place, had intentionally excluded me. Ethan, the brother I had defended for years, had blocked me out without a second thought. I turned to Grandpa, my voice hollow. Why? His jaw tightened. I don't know, sweetheart. But I do know one thing. He squeezed my hand. This isn't just about a trip. There's something bigger going on. I nodded, my mind racing. He was right. This betrayal wasn't just about the vacation. It was deeper than that. I took a deep breath, wiping away my tears. If they thought I was just going to sit back and take this, they were wrong. I was going to find out the truth. And when I did, they would regret ever trying to shut me out. I barely slept that night. I sat on Grandpa's couch, staring at my phone, scrolling through the vacation photos over and over again, each one hitting me like a fresh wound. They were all there, Mom, Dad, Ethan, my aunts and uncles, laughing, drinking, celebrating. My mother's arm was around my brother's shoulders like he was the prized child, the one who mattered most. They had lied straight to my face, using Grandpa as a cover. The betrayal was like a fire burning inside me, but I wasn't going to let it consume me. I needed answers. Grandpa sat next to me, his face grim. There's something I need to tell you, Sophia. I turned to him, my pulse quickening. I've had my suspicions for a long time, he continued, but I didn't want to believe your parents would actually do this to you. He reached into the drawer of his desk and pulled out a thick folder. Asterisk, asterisk. When he handed it to me, I hesitated. Something told me that whatever was inside would change everything. I opened it, my fingers trembling. Inside were bank statements, legal documents, trust fund reports, things I had never seen before. Grandpa's voice was heavy with disappointment. This is everything I've been collecting over the years. Your trust fund, Sophia, it was supposed to be split evenly between you and Ethan. My throat tightened. Supposed to be? He nodded. Your parents drained your portion, slowly, over the years. First, for Ethan's private school tuition. Then his luxury car. Then his failed businesses. Every major expense he ever had, it came from your inheritance. I felt like I couldn't breathe. All those years I worked extra hours, struggled to make ends meet, sacrificed my time, while Ethan was given everything without lifting a finger. They took what was mine and handed it to him like a gift. How much? I whispered, barely able to form the words. Grandpa hesitated before answering. Almost everything. The original trust fund was worth $3.5 million. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to keep my emotions in check. $3.5 million. Gone. Given to Ethan. There's more, Grandpa said, his voice dropping lower. They're not just stealing from you. They're planning to transfer the entire hotel business to Ethan. My eyes snapped open. What? He sighed. Your father is finalizing the paperwork now. Once it's done, Ethan will have full ownership. And you'll be left with nothing. I shook my head in disbelief. But the business was supposed to be for both of us. It was, Grandpa said. That's why I gave your father control years ago, trusting that he would do the right thing. But he's made it clear, he only sees Ethan as his heir. I clenched my fists. They hadn't just stolen from me. They were erasing me. All those years of playing the responsible daughter, working hard, proving my worth, it was for nothing. They had already made up their minds long ago. Grandpa put his hand on mine. You don't have to accept this, Sophia. A slow, cold realization settled in my chest. He was right. I had spent my entire life trying to earn my family's love, thinking if I just worked harder, did better, maybe they would see me as an equal. But they never would. They had underestimated me. I wasn't going to let them win. I want to stop them, I said, looking Grandpa in the eye. But I don't know how. He smiled, the first genuine smile I had seen since this nightmare started. That's why we're not doing this alone. That's when he pulled out his phone and called someone. Minutes later, my Aunt Rebecca walked through the door. Aunt Rebecca had always been the black sheep of the family, but I had always admired her. She had been a high-powered lawyer before retiring, and unlike my parents, she had never treated me like I was invisible. She sat down across from me, looking at the folder Grandpa had given me. She flipped through the papers, nodding. "This is solid proof," she said. "They've been embezzling from your trust fund. And if they're moving money offshore, that means they're planning to run." I frowned. "Run? Where?" "Switzerland," Grandpa said, his voice hard. "Your father's been transferring money into secret accounts there. They want to disappear before you realize what's happening." I felt the rage rise in my chest. So not only had they stolen my money, my future, and my place in the family, they were going to run away with whatever was left? "We can stop them," Rebecca said firmly. "But we need to act fast." I took a deep breath. This was it. I had spent my whole life playing by their rules, letting them control me. But now? Now I was going to take everything back. "What do we do first?" I asked. Rebecca leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. "First, we expose them. Publicly." I hesitated. "Publicly?" She nodded. "They think they have all the power. But the one thing they care about more than money? Their reputation." I thought about it. She was right. My parents thrived on appearances. They wanted to be seen as the perfect, successful family. If the truth came out, it would ruin them. A small smile formed on my lips. "Then, let's ruin them." Rebecca grinned. "That's my girl." I picked up my phone and started typing. If they thought they could erase me, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. I had never been the kind of person to seek revenge. I had spent most of my life trying to earn love and approval, believing that if I just worked hard enough, my parents would finally see me as worthy. But that version of me was gone. They had taken everything from me, my inheritance, my place in the family business, even my dignity, and I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I sat with Aunt Rebecca and Grandpa as we mapped out our plan. The first step? Exposing them. My parents had built their entire lives around their perfect image, respected business owners, devoted parents, an ideal family. They cared more about their reputation than anything else. I opened Instagram, staring at Ethan's smug vacation photos. His latest post showed him standing on a balcony, a drink in hand, captioned, "A well-earned break. Nothing like success to make life sweeter." I clenched my jaw. Success? He didn't earn a thing. Everything he had was stolen. I typed my own post and hit send. Funny how my parents lied about Grandpa being injured just to keep me from this family vacation. Even funnier how the hotel business and my trust fund, meant to be shared, are now in my brother's name. Stolen money, stolen business, and they thought I'd never find out. I leaned back, watching the numbers climb. Within minutes, the post had hundreds of comments. Some were from distant family members, shocked at the betrayal. Others were from business associates, questioning the legitimacy of my parents' dealings. And then came the calls. The first was from Ethan. "What the hell, Sophia?" His voice was frantic, low, like he was trying to keep from being overheard. I let him stew in silence for a second before answering. "Oh, you saw it? Good. Take it down." "No. You're making Mom and Dad look bad." I let out a short, humorless laugh. "I'm making them look bad? Ethan, they stole from me. They lied to me. And now they're trying to disappear with what's left. You're lucky all I did was post the truth." He was quiet for a moment before he said, "You don't understand the full picture." I gritted my teeth. "Oh, I understand plenty." The next call was from my mother. "Sophia, take that post down immediately." Her voice was cold, clipped, the tone she used when she thought she still had control over me. "No," I said simply. "You're embarrassing this family. Do you have any idea what you're doing?" I laughed bitterly. "Yeah, Mom. I'm doing what I should have done a long time ago, standing up for myself." She exhaled sharply. "Sophia, listen to me. We had reasons for what we did. Your father and I have always looked out for what's best for this family. By stealing my trust fund? By making sure things were handled properly. We knew what was best. If we gave you that money, you wouldn't have known how to use it wisely. Ethan needed it more, right?" I cut her off. "That's the part you're about to say. He was more responsible." He was the better choice for the business. Just admit it, Mom. You never wanted me to have anything. She was silent for a long moment before she said, "If you don't take the post down, you'll regret it." I smiled. Oh, I think you're the ones who are about to have regrets. By the end of the day, the fallout had begun. Journalists started asking questions about the legitimacy of my parents' business. Employees at the hotels, who had once stayed silent, began speaking up about unpaid wages and questionable financial moves. Grandpa had called in a few business contacts, and suddenly, investors were reconsidering their trust in my father's leadership. That night, Rebecca and I filed a lawsuit to freeze the hotel business transfer. My parents hadn't finalized the paperwork yet, but they were close. Legally, if we could prove that the transfer was done through fraud or manipulation, we could stop it in its tracks. But we had one last move left to play. Grandpa had one final document up his sleeve, his original contract with my father, the one that had placed him in charge of the business. There was a clause in it that had been conveniently ignored all these years. If proof of misconduct was ever found, control of the business could be revoked. The next morning, I showed up at the corporate office, walking straight into my father's office, where he and my mother were shredding documents. Dad looked up, his face turning red. "You don't belong here." I smiled coldly. "Actually, Dad, I do." I held up Grandpa's contract. "And I think you'll want to read this." For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. They knew they had lost. For years, I had felt powerless. I had watched my parents favor Ethan, watched them strip me of opportunities, watched them lie to my face and pretend I was part of this family when in reality, I was just an inconvenience to them. But standing in my father's office that day, holding the contract that would destroy everything they had planned, I finally understood something. I had never been powerless. My father snatched the paper from my hands, his eyes scanning over the words, his expression darkening with every second. My mother stood behind him, her face pale, gripping the desk like it was the only thing keeping her upright. I crossed my arms. "You ignored this clause, didn't you?" My voice was steady, controlled. "The one that says if you ever engaged in financial misconduct, you'd lose your control over the business?" Dad slammed the contract onto his desk. "This is nonsense. You don't know what you're talking about." I smiled, a slow, knowing smile. "Oh, but I do." I pulled out another set of papers from my bag. "Because I have bank records, financial reports, and proof that you embezzled from the trust fund that was legally mine." Mom's hands started to shake. "Sophia, let's talk about this." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, now you want to talk." I let out a cold laugh. "Where was this concern when you were handing over my money to Ethan? Or when you were transferring the business to him behind my back?" Ethan stormed into the room then, out of breath, his face red. "You're ruining everything," he spat. "Why can't you just let this go? Why do you have to destroy the family?" I tilted my head. "Oh, you mean the family that just spent years stealing from me? The family that pretended I didn't exist?" He threw up his hands. "You're just jealous." I had to laugh at that. Jealous? Of him? He had spent his entire life coasting on money that wasn't his, living in a delusion where everything was handed to him while I had worked my way through life. Jealous. I repeated, stepping closer.
"No, Ethan."
"I'm just done being used." At that moment, the doors to the office opened, and two federal agents walked in, followed by Aunt Rebecca and Grandpa. My father's face drained of color. "What is this?" he demanded. One of the agents, a tall man in a suit, stepped forward. "Mr. Carter, we have evidence that you and your wife have been involved in fraudulent financial activities, including embezzlement and illegal offshore transfers. We're placing you both under arrest." My mother gasped, looking at my father in sheer panic. "Mark, do something." But there was nothing to be done. As the agents placed cuffs on both of them, my father turned to me, his eyes filled with rage. "You think you've won?" he hissed. "You think you're better than us?" I held his gaze, my expression unreadable. "No," I said quietly. "I just finally decided to fight back." Ethan took a step back, realizing the reality of the situation sinking in. He looked at me, his eyes wide with disbelief. You ruined everything, Sophia. I shrugged.
No, Ethan.
You did. As they were led away, I felt something inside me shift. For the first time in my life, I felt free. The aftermath was quick and merciless. The legal case against my parents moved swiftly, with Rebecca leading the charge. With their financial crimes exposed, the court ruled that the transfer of the business to Ethan was fraudulent and voided the deal. My parents lost everything, and Ethan, without their financial backing, was left with nothing. Grandpa took legal action to restore my rightful ownership of my trust fund, but the damage was already done. Most of the money was gone. Instead, the court awarded me full control of the hotel business, as I was the only one legally entitled to it now. And just like that, the thing my parents had fought so hard to take away from me was now mine alone. At first, I wasn't sure if I wanted it. Taking over the company meant stepping into the mess my father left behind. It meant fixing the damage, rebuilding trust with employees, and proving that I wasn't like him. But then I thought about everything I had lost, everything I had fought for. And I knew. I wasn't just taking back what was mine. I was building something better. 3 months later, I walked into the Carter Hotel headquarters, this time not as an outsider, but as its rightful owner. Employees who had once been afraid to speak now approached me openly, grateful that the toxic reign of my parents was over. I made changes, real changes. I implemented fair wage policies, created a scholarship fund for employee families, and restructured the company to ensure transparency. Ethan tried to reach out once, a pathetic attempt to get back into my good graces. I didn't respond. Some wounds don't heal, and some people never change. My parents were sentenced to prison for financial fraud, and for the first time in my life, I stopped caring about their approval. I sat with Grandpa one afternoon, looking out over the ocean from the balcony of one of our newly renovated hotels. He took a sip of his coffee and smiled. You know, your grandfather would be proud of you, he said. You took their betrayal and turned it into something they never expected. I smiled back. What's that? He reached over and squeezed my hand. Your victory. And he was right. In the end, they had stolen from me, lied to me, and tried to erase me from my own life. But all they had really done was push me to find my strength. Their betrayal wasn't my downfall.